thank you so much for joining us here today.
Absolutely. Great to be here.
Great. I'd like to start off by talking a bit about the origins of the band. You began the band by calling it Village Idiot and playing in local bars, and eventually you rebranded to Nickelback. And you funded your music through a bank loan from Mike's stepfather, so your stepfather. Did you ever conceive that you would eventually grow into becoming kind of what you are today as a band?
It was a master plan, yes.
Yeah.
I mean, these things always work out. No, that's
There clearly was no illusion of impending success for us.
Yeah, it's a strange thing. It really is. Well, I never thought I'd be here in Oxford for number one.
Yeah, thanks for having us, by the way. Yeah, very nice.
It's the only way I can get in. No, we started with small, I guess, a small loan first to record our first demo, and it literally was just to get studio experience. That was my perception of it anyway, was just to get studio experience and then go back to my real job. And which wasn't much of a career, but it was just a job. But this was a passion of ours that we did. We grew up in a small town in Alberta, Canada, and there wasn't. We didn't have the high hopes of. Or I shouldn't say that. I don't know about you. For me though, I didn't dream that this is going to happen, that this is a possibility. Although you read the magazines back then, magazines was your connection to music and people in the business, and it was great to see from afar. I honestly never really thought this was going to happen, but I really just truly enjoyed playing music, and I hadn't delved into the original side of it at that point. And I mean, how old were we when we started? Was it 22 or something?
Way back then, even prior, when we were playing out of the garages of our friends' mothers, we were in our teen years, in the very, very, very beginning.
Yeah,
we were still going to school at the time, but I don't think any of us knew what. It's kind of hard to describe, but not to say that we didn't think about success or whatever, but we didn't know what that even looked like. So, there's a lot of this that you're driving forward for, but you don't really know what the destination is.
Truly, it's the loans you're speaking of, which we didn't have much for collateral. We were a really bad risk.
Yes, we
still are a really bad risk.
Not a good choice by the bank.
But no, I'd done some cattle ranching in Alberta at the time. My whole family, that's the rest of my relatives and whatnot are all from the Red Deer Valley, and it's farming and ranching and grassroots kind of stuff, blue collar kind of family. And so I had built up enough goodwill with the bank. And I think probably my dad helped a little bit in convincing the bank manager that I was good for it, which is a real stretch at that point. This was our first full-length album that we were recording, and we were doing it on our own, so we were going to be hung for this if it didn't work out. And when you have your head down and you're just working, you don't really. That's kind of where I was going with this. You don't really think about. I wasn't thinking about the big possibilities necessarily. Of course, it was an end game. It was where this could lead, but you don't. I don't know. We were too busy working, I think, to really get caught up in that. It's one of those things where you get a career when you're busy working on that career, and you don't. We weren't really super conscious of it at the point, I suppose, is the best way to put it. But we were damn desperate to get that money back, so. That's for sure.
And what would you say the biggest challenges were that you faced in your early days especially?
Biggest challenges?
Where to go? That was a big one for us at one point, was where do we go? Because we had to be geographically located somewhere. And where we were in the small town where we grew up was not going to do it. And I had moved to Vancouver ahead of these fellas, and I was doing other music pursuits there. but there was a choice: do we set up in Vancouver or do we set up in Toronto? And Toronto would have been the more logical choice, so naturally we went to Vancouver.
True, yeah, truthfully, yeah. But so many hurdles initially. Just being in Canada is difficult. No, you guys are from. If anybody's from Canada, you're from Canada, right? Yeah, I mean,
it is difficult being there, isn't it?
What I mean, geographically difficult. If I want to play, Vancouver, and this may fall on deaf ears if you don't know the geography of Canada, but if I want to play Vancouver, and Kelowna and Kamloops don't want to book us, then we've got in Calgary's there. That's like a 10-hour drive. So to get to the next gig, and especially in the wintertime, is a disaster up there. You're really slugging it out to try to bring yourself to people. And I remember our agent saying that. He said that weeds out half the bands just trying to drive across Canada,
it does.
Get the gas money, figure a way to make it happen, sleep where you have to sleep. You have to slug it out for a while when you can. I remember being rolled up in a rug at a friend's house. That was my bed for the night. But it didn't matter. It wasn't like those things are issues. We at that point we were just head down working on to the next gig, and you just did what you had to do. So looking back, it's kind of nice to see those things in the rearview mirror. But all those things are pieces of the puzzle that kind of make you who you are, give you perspective on things of where you've been and what you're going to be faced next. We've had a lot of interesting situations that have happened to us. Yeah, and thankfully some really tough ones on a lower level, which is great. I'm fine with being burned on a lower level, and you learn those lessons, and then you take that with you. So,
and being poor is something best done when you're young. I wouldn't want to do it now.
So just very much following on from that, do you feel nostalgic about these kind of older experiences, or do you think you're kind of glad to have moved on? And
it's mixed.
It's mixed, absolutely. Like, if you could only see some of the places we stayed.
Yeah.
We stayed at one place that was voted. It was voted. This is ridiculous. It was voted the worst bathroom in Canada in the Canadian Music Magazine. And when I say bathroom, I mean because the band area to stay was there was a floor of rooms where there were other. I don't know what kind of place that people are staying there, but there was a band room there and one collective washroom to use at the end of the hall.
It was
That's
kind
a little dodgy.
What do you call those kind of places? Like a pension hotel or something?
I don't know.
Like a hotel that you like an apartment you rent by the day or week or something like.
Yeah.
So that naturally
It's the place where you had to go cook your own breakfast downstairs at the hotel. It was kind of weird.
Odd.
But like I said, those are stories you remember, and some of them a little grittier than others. But those are the ones that kind of I think build character. There are moments where like I've got some great fond memories of my family supporting us as we're coming up in the business, and our friends that were a huge piece of the puzzle. I mean, you can do this on your own. Sometimes it just happens where you record a song, it pops, and there it goes. And then other times you slug it out, and you have to work to get where you want to be. And I had total support with my family. I've got one brother, and my folks were super supportive at the time. And my wife now, back then, fiance back then, like, to let you go out on the road and do this and try this, I mean, it's a huge gamble. So there's a lot of pieces of this puzzle, I think. And yeah, I do look back on a lot of it fondly, and a lot of it I'm really glad is gone.
Yeah.
Turning now to your musical style. So if you listen to kind of your older albums, such as Curb, it's interesting to see how your musical style has changed over the years. Could you talk a bit more about how this kind of process happened and how your experiences changed the kind of music that you made?
Well, I think in the beginning, again, this is kind of a common theme in our history, is we didn't know what we were doing. We're not totally sure what we're doing right now, but my brother began songwriting in the dark, so to speak. You know, he didn't really know how to write songs, but he knew he wanted to try it. And I think over the years he's just gotten really good at it. You know, so that's one thing in the evolution, is that his ability and facility as a songwriter is really accumulated over the years, and he's gotten more and more prolific and better at songwriting. And I hope we became better songwriting collaborators and hopefully musicians on some level.
Mm-hmm.
But it really, this whole thing, it goes by feel. You know, there's no handbook, there's no rules, and really no one knows how to do it. You know, there isn't a set of accepted laws or practices that get you in the right direction. This whole thing is you learn it by living it, and the feedback loop's tight, because when you do the wrong things, you know immediately.
So it was in the early 2000s when things really started to kind of snowball for you, and you released the hit single Leader of Men, which hit the top 10 on the mainstream American rock charts. How did it feel at that time to finally be going from kind of these very difficult beginnings to finally realizing these big dreams?
The actual transition in How You Remind Me was the biggest.
Yeah. Leader of Men was a small step forward. Mm-hmm. It was cool to see it work a little bit, but it didn't really change anything. We really wanted it to change something.
It's a song that didn't change the world.
Just didn't really change the world.
Yeah.
Thank goodness How You Remind Me came along later and did. But in the beginning, it was interesting because we were getting all this great news about, you know, charting and chart performance, and radio was happy about that song, Leader of Men. And it was great to hear, but you're just sort of waiting for something to come. And it was just time to do more work.
Yeah,
That's what we got.
And it's quite interesting. I mean, thinking largely about this, where and looking back on it, Leader of Men was their introduction in Canada for sure. And that's the one song we put out. And funny enough, I heard this the other day too. It's a warm-up song. It was a throwaway, as Chad figured it out. It was a throwaway, mm-hmm. And just used it to warm up his voice. And I was just like, I remember going, there's just something about that. It's catchy. There's just something about that. But who's gonna play it? I mean, nobody gives a crap about us. Who's gonna play it? And you know, at that point in our career, we had no management, we had no label, we had not a lot of help behind us at that point. And that's when we were, again, figuring it out, and we somehow got a few radio stations to play it, and that kind of got us the momentum to draw attention from American labels. We did know we wanted to get an American label to pick us up. It would be more of an international look than if you were just national. And it finally worked, but we were slugging it out. I think we slugged that album out for longer than we should have.
A long time.
Yeah, a long time. And then even when Silver Side Up came out, I guess the first single was How You Remind Me on that one that came out, and that is the one that changed everything for us. I don't know. I think timing is such a huge part. That's kind of where I was going with this, where it's being in the game, just being in what you want to do. You just have to be there, at the very least. And I know it sounds simple, but it's like it could be such a defeating kind of feeling of people saying, no, we don't like you, we don't like your band. All the managers turn us down. I think our manager might be listening to this tonight, actually. Except he didn't turn us down. We got turned down by everybody, but you just stay in the game. You stay in the game if you've got a feeling that something about this is right. And when How You Remind Me came out, the timing, I don't know what it is about it, but it just made sense to people. For some reason, it just clicked. And I don't think there was any preconceptions about the band at this time. There wasn't anything else. It was just a clean slate. And that, I think, had a hand in it as well. And that was it. At that point, it just kicked off, and it was hang on and don't let go.
This is very much a game of intangibles. Your success is determined many times by things you can't control, and largely, like he said, timing. You know, the right song at the right time when the world's looking for it can be a really powerful thing. Yeah. We could have written that song a year prior or a year later, and we wouldn't be at Oxford right now. I'll tell you that. You know, it would have just been one more chapter of work forward, and you know. But that's how it was. Mm-hmm. You know, we were on tour when How You Remind Me started to kick off. We were already on the road, traveling, and we had no end in sight. We were going to continue to travel, and we were going to continue to tour and work and do radio interviews and do what we had to do. With, like he said, it's that whole blue collar mindset of just put your head down, do your work, don't worry about, you know, what's happening around you. Just keep focused on what you're doing, and you know, we want to believe that the goals will be realized, whatever those goals are. Like I said before, we didn't know what those goals even were, so we didn't know what we were doing. We didn't know how to do it. We didn't know what it looked like when we succeeded, if we succeeded, and we had no control over anything.
So buy the Nickelback book on economics.
That's pretty much it right there.
We will tell you how not to do things, or do things.
So when How You Remind Me kind of became very successful, you got picked up by management, you got picked up by a label. Did that pose its own challenges? Did your creative process have to change in any way?
No. Kind of the short answer, but there was a bit of pressure. External pressure, I think, and maybe Chad had some pressure on him because that was his song, and so you always want to one up your last piece. You want to be, but you're only as good as that's the music. You're only as good as your last album, is essentially what they say, and I think the label was incredibly excited about the success of Silver Side Up, and they wanted to replicate it, and they want to replicate it as quickly as possible, and they want to make sure that, you know, we were on the right path, and we were so used to doing things on our own that we were just like, just leave this to us, please. Just let us figure this thing out. We don't need any extra pressure. We get it. We get it. We already have enough. You know, we're going to start to put more pressure on ourselves at this point. But it is the saying that I've heard perpetually in this business is that, okay, this next album, I know this last one was great, but this next one is going to be the most important album you make because it's a follow-up to this. And then you put that out and have some success. Okay, now this next album is going to be, and it's just on and on. It's like, no, I get it. I understand that. This is a hard work. This is what we want to do, and we want to take as much pride in the work as we can. So I think we can put in as much, you know, we'll put more pressure on ourselves, I think, typically than other people. But initially, there wasn't a shift in songwriting necessarily. I think we started to become more insulated as a band, I think, at that point, because we did the next album on our own. We did the next album on our own, without a producer, that being said. And so I think maybe the thing that may have changed a bit is that we started to kind of get together as a band to lean on our own opinions about producing music and putting music on tape, maybe.
So Nickelback as a band has always kind of polarized opinion with its music, and
what do you
you've
mean?
got just with the reviews from critics, mixed reviews, in spite of selling kind of over 50 million albums. Why do you think this is, and how is it that you respond to this criticism?
With kindness.
I don't think that I don't think that you're doing anything if people don't feel it enough to have a visceral reaction one way or another. And I think that although it looks to most people, because we gravitate to the negative, that, you know, there is a lot of hate lobbed our way, and that is true, but that isn't all. There's also a lot of love lobbed our way. We have a brutally loyal fan base who, you know, they usually leap to our defense when those items of vitriol are lobbed our way. They're usually seized upon by our fans who love us, who really, you know, they don't really need to martyr themselves at the altar of us, but they choose to. So that's nice. But I think that you're creating you're creating something meaningful when people have a visceral reaction to you, positive or negative, I think.
And I think it seems louder these days, in the sense of, I mean, I think there's probably a good thesis in this somewhere to like actually peel this onion, because it was an interesting like time frame, like blogs and the internet and everything were really starting to come alive near, you know, late 90s, early 2000s, and people could share opinions a lot quicker, and a lot, you know, information was shared quickly, and I think in music it's a big thing. I mean, everybody grew up listening to your type of music, and you're like, oh, you listen to that, you know, or this is a way cooler band, this is a cooler band. It's all about, you know, the cool band at the time. Me included, growing up, you know, you listen to your band that you love, and there are certain bands that you just wouldn't want to listen to. Understand that, but people love to commiserate about things, about, you know, the price of fuel or whatever it is. You've seen the price. Oh, the price. This is awful. Yeah, this is terrible. People love to communicate that way. It is a kind of a bonding experience, I think, and to bond over their, you know, dislike of something is, I think, it's a natural thing. I think it became a runaway thing at that time, and what were all the factors in it? I don't know. I mean, there's a lot of you know, music and artists that probably could be crucified worse than us. I mean, I guess there has to be. I don't think it's the worst thing out there, but you know, there's always a poster child for something for one of these. But that being said, too, it's funny when you talk to some other people. I've talked to some other artists, and they think they're the only ones.
Everybody does.
Or actor, or
yeah.
You know, somebody's just like, oh, you see the press about me. I'm like, yeah, please tell me about it.
But something else that came with that period.
But it's true, though. I've heard it lots.
Yeah.
So.
The other thing that came with that period, that, you know, the timing we got lucky with, there's a few things, I think. Number one, the whole idea of file sharing and being able to disseminate music without having to pay for it was new, and also the broad scale of being able to share music. I think we benefited greatly from that. I think that the Napster revolution changed our career for the better. I think more people heard about us because of that. So I don't have any ill will towards that. I think it really gave us a shot. But socially, there was also the new shiny toy of, now I can be an asshole but be totally anonymous. That was just, I mean, well, we're still having a blast with it today, you know. I think the luster is starting to wear off because people are starting to figure out how vapid that actually is. But these things combined, you know, I think we got ubiquitous because of it, and I think we got sort of the cudgel of it used on us when it was new.
Yeah. So look for Mike's secret Twitter account. He's got one out there.
He's
quite sassy.
I haven't engaged for a while.
Yeah.
That's fun.
So you said just now that growing up you all had your own different musical tastes. So I just wanted to ask, what have been the main musical influences for the band in general throughout your career and before?
Oh, the band in general, that's difficult.
Or kind of individually for each one of you?
I think growing up, for sure, there's a book. Actually, I found it interesting. I read this book later on. It's called Fargo Rock City.
Oh yeah,
you know one?
Yes, love that book.
It pretty much described how I grew up, musically as well. Mm-hmm. So being in Hannah is about 2,800 people, and like I honestly have not enough nice things to say about Hannah. It was a great place to grow up, and it was it's all you know, but you make it the best that you can make it, and it was awesome. The people are just amazing there. I had a great upbringing there, but you couldn't get a cassette for your life or something that you wanted. There's one music store in town, rarely had something I was looking for, and you had to drive 2 hours to the next main city to get something. And we did have, we had AM radio. So, God, that sounds like a sob story. But you would hear the new music. You'd want to get it, but you couldn't get it. So you had to tape it off the radio, or you had to go to the city to get the music. And so one person would bring an album back, and then it would just proliferate around town. Mm-hmm. Like that was the album to listen to. And then the next, someone else would bring one back, and did you hear this? And then just everywhere. And rock was, there was pop on the radio as well, but it was a real mix, and a lot of rock. We listened to a lot of rock back then, a lot of metal.
Yeah, hard rock, metal.
Hard rock.
Yeah.
I try to look back and see exactly. I wonder if I lived in a different city, if I would listen to different music, because it was like that. The new Master of Puppets would come to town. The album, the album was making a tour, and we would take it, and everybody would be listening to it. And I was just absolutely floored the first time I heard that, because I was used to listening to some rock, like the Cars, and Prince Purple Rain was out, I think, around just previously to that. But when I heard that, it was just like, what is this? It completely just, I don't know. I hadn't heard anything quite like it. And I think it's those kind of salient points in your life where you kind of they mean something. And looking back on it, it did for sure. At the time, you just go with your emotions. You're like, holy shit, I got to do something. And it was a terrible idea to try to learn guitar playing Metallica. It's really hard.
Yeah, it's hard to play.
But I remember that was kind of the start. And Anthrax and Megadeth. Guns N' Roses were the Appetite for Destruction just came out. That was huge. The Cult, Sonic Temple, and Electric had just come out. And I remember, listening a lot to that. That being said, and this is just me, that was kind of I guess a blank statement for Hannah. We all kind of listened to that stuff, and all listened to the rock. But personally, I had a lot of country in my family. My dad played in a country band for years, since he was like 8, I think. And so I I had a lot of country, which I just could not deal with early on. I just couldn't do it. And then I kind of gravitated back to it because it's a bit of a touchstone when you recognize it as you go older, and you go, oh, that's something my dad used to listen to. Oh, this is something we used to play in the house. And so there's elements of that, funny enough, in what you do and kind of your influence. So it's a strange mixed bag sometimes. And I kind of like that. It's not all or nothing for me. I have to have kind of a breadth of music, I guess, to listen to.
I think those influences you stated and quoted at that time are they go through all of us for sure. I became obsessed with Pink Floyd around that time. And that was something that affected me because when I started to listen to that kind of music, the hard rocks especially, but also the Pink Floyd especially. Beyond that, I didn't play music at that time. I think I bought that because I liked the cover.
Yep, that's how I bought most of my tapes.
And then it turned out to be, accidentally, a really seminal album for how I hear and understand music. Luckily, the band that had the coolest cover made one of the greatest records in history. Thank goodness, because it could have been. That was the first album I ever purchased with money, and it could have been a piece of garbage, just with a great cover. But it turned out to be, something that changed the way that things worked for me.
And the Tragically Hip. Sorry, I gotta say that. Whoever knows a Tragically Hip here.
He doesn't want to have his passport revoked.
No. Those ones were kind of inspirational albums, I guess. Whereas as we started getting, I think when we played as a cover band for 8 months, which
that was the Village Idiot band you were referring to.
You don't make a lot of money doing that, just even stay alive. So, and we played a whole set of just the Tragically Hip, like that at that time when they came out as a Canadian band. And if you haven't heard them, you should really go check them out. They're one of Canada's big bands, and
they're national treasure.
Yeah, and they really are. Their songwriting, lyrically, the songwriting as well was just really inspiring. The music was just, I don't know, it's hard to explain. It's one of those, I don't know if it's one of those things where you grow up listening to something you think is fantastic.
It might be.
I think it is. I don't know. Go check it out anyways, The Hip.
So a quick question about the internal band dynamic, especially when it comes to writing music. Chad mainly writes the lyrics. So I was wondering how you and how much contribution the two of you have had in shaping your past albums, and if there's something you've been particularly proud of.
We've done all the good stuff. We've shaped all the good stuff, and all the stuff you don't like, we had nothing to do with that.
So we, if you know our catalog of music over the years, you know that there's a variety of song types, both in
what do you mean by that, Mike?
Tone, theme, topic, and there's certain topics that some of us have. A better. No, I'm getting to it. There's certain topics that some of us are better at than others, and we each write.
How's that for a PC answer?
We each come with our strengths on those certain things, and the ones that don't have the strength on those certain items don't contribute.
Right.
Yeah. I can only speak to what I've.
Now he's going to tell you the
nice.
truth.
Yeah. No, I rarely do that. I can speak to what I've done, songwriting wise, because Chad is the main songwriter. That was the impetus of this whole band. It was just the fact that he had seven songs that he wanted to record, and I wanted to go get some studio experience. I'd never been in a studio before, and we only had enough money for a day and a half, so that wasn't a lot of experience. But he's just really prolific.
Yeah.
And I mean, we were talking about this upstairs, as a band, it's hard to put forward one opinion with four guys, unless you're all just like rah. We're all exact minded.
You see that sometimes, but
yeah, that's what I'm saying. It's not an impossibility, but we're not, and we're all very different. And I think the chemistry of that is part of why this thing works. I don't agree with everything that he writes, but he writes, what he knows and what he wants us to write about. And I love some of the stuff he writes, and I'm sure he doesn't like some of the stuff I come up with. And,
of course.
And vice versa. It just that stuff. It's the kind of sussing it out that we get to where we kind of want to go, I guess, to a degree. Because I don't think anybody's going to be like 100% happy with everything that you put out. I mean, I think every artist will say too, if I had a chance to change something, I might change this, I might change that. Mm-hmm. But it's a snapshot of where you are in that time frame. And for me, as we were going through the albums, I was never a songwriter. I just wasn't. I was, especially with lyrics, I was never really strong with the lyrics, I felt. And okay to acknowledge that in the fact where, that's something that someone else hopefully has the strength. Musically, how to piece it together and arrange it, that's my wheelhouse. But I became better at lyrics and music as well as we went along, just by throwing your hat in the ring kind of thing. It's a real like you were saying before, it's kind of a solitary thing initially, I think. It's really revealing. Mm-hmm. I'm sure a lot of songwriters say the same thing, but it's tough to say, well, here's something. It's this little thing. I don't know if it's any good or not. And it's really revealing to have to show somebody that sometimes because there's a good chance they could laugh at you. There's a good chance they just politely go, "Oh, that was all right. Yeah, that was all right." It's like, and you know exactly what they mean. But what I liked is when I heard something, he would come with some kind of riff or idea, and if I heard something, when I hear something I like, melodically, I just latch onto it and I sink my teeth into it, and those are the songs that I would collaborate with him on, and try to get it to a place where I was happy with it too, and also, you know, just help mold this piece, because he comes up with some really great melodies, just infectious melodies, and there's points of good lyrics. Not everybody's gonna like the stuff, but I mean, I'd rather bring up the things that I like. In that sense, I think that's a little more productive, especially when you're in the studio. It's like, this is great, we're on the right track.
There's catchy things.
Yeah, it's like, we can't all possibly be on the same page all the time. But he definitely likes to be a little, what's the adjective for that? Not inflammatory. He likes to push the envelope, put it that way.
There you go.
And he's happy to do that, and I get that. Yeah. He has a job that I could not do. I'm not a front man. I'm not as a prolific songwriter as he is, and I can't do the front man gig. It's not my thing. And so, again, I see the chemistry almost being necessary, because you got to rein that stuff in sometimes too. It's good to let it go, and you have to have the voice out there to kind of make some noise, and it's integral. But sometimes it's good to I think I might be that guy. I don't know.
I think it's also good to keep your mouth shut when you're collaborating sometimes, you know, and I'm not very good at that.
No.
At all. So, you know, there's a lot of times when there's an artistic vision being realized, but it's just not quite there yet, and what you need to really do as an effective and good collaborator is shut the hell up and don't criticize it yet, because it's not done. It's not there. It's not ready to have another mind try to polish it yet. And yeah, I stepped in that quite a few times.
Are we going through therapy? I feel like we're going through therapy here.
We should be on a leather
Some
couch
weird form of
here. You know,
therapy,
it feels good.
Yeah.
Feels good.
Great. Final question for me. I'm sure you've been asked this many times. You recently had a run-in on Twitter with Donald Trump when he used a clip of a photograph to criticise Joe Biden. How did you react to this when you saw it?
Oh. Well, just one thing, let me begin. You go ahead in a moment.
I want you to hit this straight between the eyes.
Well, our reaction was to not react. As you know, anybody who is paying attention would see that we didn't react. We didn't. We left it. We left it and didn't engage it.
I think
you go ahead.
Yeah, that's all Mike wants to talk about. I think honestly, the quagmire of politics is exhausting these days. I don't know if that's for anybody else, but it's like, I mean, well, we're in England. It's here, it's everywhere. And the fact, you know, and we're Canadian, right? I didn't want to be dragged into any kind of partisan politics, any kind of agenda. I don't think that's our place. I mean, it's a weird thing, especially when you take politics and Twitter. I mean, what a messy thing. It's just full of poison. I'm sorry, Twitter is a tough place to hang out, whether you're reading Twitter or whether you're reading comments on something. Like, man, I hope the comments on this YouTube are actually quite nice. We'll see later on. But it's just a mess. And I was surprised when it came up, but I didn't want to give it any oxygen. I don't want to give that thing any more oxygen.
All right. With that, we'll turn to questions from the audience.
Great.
So if you have a question, if you could put your hand straight up and a microphone should come to you. If we go to the hand here.
It was just, it was great to listen to you, Mike and Ryan.
Oh, thank you.
I'm actually a great fan of your music.
Oh, thank you.
What I really like about it, actually, and what makes it infectious, I think, is sort of both the emotional package that you put into it and it resonates with us as listeners, but also sort of the sincerity that you put in it. So as you said, success is ancillary to your music, so you're not trying to sort of refashion yourselves like other artists I listen to. So that's why I really like your music. I remember actually listening to sort of rock star 12 years ago when it first came out. I listened to it this morning and it still sounded really fresh. My question actually isn't about Rockstar, it's about another song I really like from your Dark Horse album in 2010. It's If Today Was Your Last Day. The lyrics to that for me are pure gold, and they are pure gold on as your music video shows, where you've got all the bits of paper with it written on, and it's such a positive, sort of expresses so much positivism. I was wondering what the exact, was that all sort of Chad just sort of churning out these lyrics and then you guys joined, or was it, I remember hearing it was some sort of, that was going to be your debut song, in fact. So I was wondering, how was that song Under the Surface sort of being perfected, as it were? Could you sort of talk about the background of that song?
That one.
Sorry, that was a long question.
No.
I got you.
No,
it's great. Thanks for your question too.
I appreciate that. That one was kind of the idea, if today was your last day, to have this, that phrase is quite a big, it's a big thing, it's a big topic, I mean, obviously. And it was pointed to be like a positive song. We're like, what are the things you can do? And you know, if somebody's grinding an axe with somebody, are you gonna like literally just bury the hatchet? Which is part of it. It's like you start to go through things, and so he was in there just going over all of these kind of phrases and adages and whatnot that he was trying to go through and place with that sentiment, because it's one of the things we want to do sometimes is get a song that's, you can make personal songs and then you can make songs that are uplifting. It's like where do you want to go with your songwriting? And that was at a stage where he was like, let's just find this song, this thing, the most kind of uplifting kind of pieces, because we've had songs to deal with the father not being around and domestic abuse, and it's like those songs are honest and genuine and truly, and they're great too when you hear people come back saying that song saved my life, that song made an impact on me because this is what happens in my house. I think those are some pretty amazing stories to hear that it actually made a difference. I like those kind of songs, like If Today Was Your Last Day, when you sing it live. You get that feedback from the people, because it's just like, you got enough negativity. It's tough to just stay in one kind of area like that. So that's kind of, when we were making that, that's what we were looking for, was just something that's kind of fisted in the air, like this is a championing song. This is the song about positivity, and how many things can we bring up about positivity, because it is something that, you live quite a ways away from us, and it kind of connected with you. So that's kind of our intent, right? So I'm glad you liked it.
Yeah, actually that
wasn't real money in those bags either. He was throwing it away. So.
Yeah, I know.
We didn't get that. We didn't get that big budget for the video, so.
I think you hit the nail on the hammer. Actually, that's why you've got such a strong fan base of people like me, I guess. Okay. I'm not going to hold the mic.
No, I appreciate that. That's very cool.
Thank you very much.
Any other questions? If we go to the front row, just hit.
Not really sure how to follow that one. I've been a big fan of your music ever since I heard it. And going through all your discography, every sort of song has resonated with me in some form or another. I know that's what a lot of people love, is that each of your songs mean something different, and you have such a wide spectrum of meaning behind them. But are there any songs in particular to each of you that you hold particularly closer than others? And ones that have a bigger meaning than the rest of your discography?
That's a good question.
It is a good question. Usually we get asked which is our favorite, which is a...
Yeah, no, I know.
It's a loaded...
That's what I'm trying to...
Yeah.
Yeah,
that's a much more thoughtful way of asking that. I don't know. I think it's... I don't know exactly how it fits in, but the song Photograph is you know, not to beat the cliche up, but it is a snapshot of our lives at that time. That was our childhood. We shot that video in the junior high school that we went to, you know. The first time I got drunk was in that gymnasium of all places. You know, that was our...
Good times, Mike.
Oh. Yeah, never get drunk and go to basketball practice, I'll tell you.
So glad I wasn't there.
Yeah, well, I wish I wasn't there.
Yeah,
But that was really our childhood, and the things that Chad, you know, the story that he crafted is true. You know, all of those little details are factual in nature, and it really does take me back when I listen to that song, even today. Even when we play that song today live, sometimes I'll go back there. So that one means something.
Yeah, that as far as like just our providence, I guess, is that our song essentially. But I guess it'd be, for me, if you're looking for personal, for me it's gonna have to be this last album we put out on Feed the Machine, were the betrayals for me, and the reason they're more personal is for me, it was, I've done a lot of contributions on the songs and co-writing with Chad. Those ones were my first front to back to piece together, like musically, where I finally got to kind of exercise two completely different demons on that one, because one is very, very, very heavy, which I wanted to do in different time signatures, which we're not really known for, so to speak, which we've always enjoyed, but we know kind of a good catchy song that we kind of know where we sit well. And so I like that. I was like, I don't expect anybody to really listen to this too much, but I like that. And I also am putting out the Act 1. That was Act 3. Putting out Act 1 was a bit, it's not characteristic of us, an acoustic instrumental. It's just not something we've done before. It's not new, obviously, to so many acts, but for us, we've never done that. So it was a bit riskier to kind of get behind that one. So I felt pretty good about that. I don't know how anybody else feels about it, but for me, those are two for me.
Great job, by the way. You did great.
Like the answer? Thanks, man. Appreciate it.
No, I mean the songs.
Oh, thank you. That too.
Anyone else?
Thank you.
If we go to the hand in the front row here.
I just had a question about you guys personally. As someone who's also moved away from Alberta, I just wanted to ask, how did you find things culturally when you started touring? Like, obviously Hannah's very small, and you were speaking about that earlier, but what was it like then for you guys to suddenly be in these big cities and not in Alberta, and, you know, there's no farms everywhere?
Yeah. I mean,
Pretty interesting. Pretty interesting.
Yeah, it's a bit of I mean, I'm not going to go as far as say it's culture shock by any means, I suppose, but I know what you're saying, especially internationally. That's a whole other thing. It was quite a whirlwind for Silver Side Up. That was the one that just took us literally everywhere.
Yeah.
Essentially, countries that wouldn't let us in before are now letting us in, and now we're having to speak to people that speak Spanish, or that speak German, or that really is, or speak Japanese, or speak Portuguese. I'm still working on my Portuguese, but it's I got to wrap my head around that, and that was crazy for us on a couple of levels, because it's crazy because it's just really, it's exciting to go and play there and stuff, but it's like you had to figure out what to do. Can't necessarily have a conversation and lean on that as part of, the in-between songs and connection with the crowd. So you don't want to just be completely stick to just the songs and don't acknowledge the crowd and acknowledge your fans. Make some kind of connection. So I don't know. It's one of those. It's a bit of a crash course. Like, I don't like speaking in front of people, like, at all.
You'd never know it.
No, it's these things. Have to learn how to do these things. Different types of skills, but but that was something it was definitely, it was new, kind of scary, but kind of exciting. Like it's not, those are one of the things to kind of look back on and remembering. Like that was a pretty exciting part of the career to kind of, the first wave.
And touring, coming from this small town is very interesting because you're from Calgary, is that right? Okay, Calgary was the big city for us. Calgary is where
that was the culture shock, right
where we went for city things. Going to McDonald's was considered a novelty for us. That was something that was really an unusual treat that you got to do when you went to the city, or you go to concerts or those sorts of things in the city. So even as short a distance as that was, even as we knew Calgary when we were growing up, when you get there, it's overwhelming where what you're used to is a town that you can walk across in, 25 minutes, and then you get to someplace like Calgary, that's a big deal. Then beyond that got weirder, getting into these other towns that never been to, and rock and roll literally has taken us around the world to places we never in a million years would have thought that we would go. So it's mind-bending. You can't. But you wake up places and wow, we're in Luxembourg now. That's interesting. Why are we here? And you're there to play songs. It's preposterous.
Mm-hmm. Like he's worldly. That's why I like him.
We have time for one final question. If we go to the hand right there in the corner, just behind you, sir. If you stand up when you're asking your question, that'd be great.
Thank you. It's awesome to see you here. I have a follow-up question to the librarian's question on Donald Trump's tweet.
Yes.
Were you the one who reported it to Twitter because the video was deleted at a moment? So was it your decision to report it, or was it maybe your studio who give you advice, or?
Do you want me to field this? You want me to field this?
You said you would?
Yeah. Oh, I thought I said you would. Okay, no, I will, for sure. We are not interested in being used as a tool of politics. Just simply because, well, I'll get back to that in a second. The reality was but I can illustrate more. What happened was we initially realized that we were being used in a way that we didn't approve, and then we realized it was a copyright violation at the same time. So we asked, is that okay? And frankly, it is a violation of trademark and copyright. And so that was pursued by our label and our publisher. The funny thing was that after it was struck, we were perceived in the commentary of social media as traitors and censoring the President of the United States and trampling his First Amendment right of free speech, and we shouldn't do that, and cheered by the left as heroes, right? Because we shut down this president that they don't like, that is the villain for their story. Funny enough, shortly after those copyright strikes were done, somebody posted from the left a picture of Donald Trump and Rudy Giuliani and his shady Ukrainian friends with the same meme.
Allegedly shady.
Right. No one, and it's only allegations at this point. They haven't testified yet. But following that was also copyright struck. And then after that, we were cheered by the right as being, hooray, standing up for the president, and vilified by the left as being Trump apologists, sympathizers, whatever, and we're the bastards who shut down the left all of a sudden. So the thing about what I'm coming around to is we never said anything. The entire commentary was made by everyone else for us. So we didn't really apparently have to say anything because we got to be on four sides of the same problem, which is unique.
So what happened?
What happened? I don't even know. I don't even know because
We shut down everybody evenly. How about that?
Yeah, yeah.
We just a blanket shutdown. We're Canadian too, by the way. Did I mention that? I don't want any part of their politics.
The news cycle moves real fast. It was obvious that there would be a new catastrophe of either the English language, logic, or some perception of world events. So just wait for that to come and blot out our small role in this.
We took it down.
That is all we have time for today, I think. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in thanking Mike and Ryan today.